They're the faces of child abuse, victims of beatings, burnings, and sexual assaults, and their numbers are on the rise in Pennsylvania. Last year, 24,000 suspected child abuse cases were reported to state authorities, a 4% jump in 1 year. 8,000 of those cases were confirmed.
I think they're not nearly what are the true numbers of abuse cases. I think there are many more. I think there are many we don't see.
Annette Hardman, whose agency counsels abusive parents, feels the numbers, in part, reflect a growing awareness by the public to child abuse. But she and others worry about the cases that are never reported in a world where the causes of child abuse are also escalating.
The breakdown of the family support system, the breakdown of neighborhood support systems, the unemployment stressors.
Dr. Mary Carrasco is a physician at Children's Hospital, where a dramatic rise in child abuse has also been registered. In 1985, the hospital treated just under 200 victims of child abuse. The number more than doubled last year. She blames the rise on a system that concentrates on what to do after child abuse erupts instead of prevention.
Very little emphasis on the importance of parenting. I mean, it's not talked about very much. It's not taught in school. Child development is not taught in school.
In addition to prevention, these experts are concerned about another aspect of child abuse: neglect. Parents who starve their children or psychologically abuse them. These scars are much harder to detect, and they usually never are ever detected. In fact, also the parental counseling group we spoke with tonight treats about 70 parents a week. They wait on a 6-month waiting list. It's very hard to get into it, and it's also one of the programs that's slated for budget cuts.
Exactly. With the budget cuts, it's going to be tougher and tougher for these kids.
Okay, Vince, thanks, Brian. News on the American agenda tonight. In the 1960s, every state in the nation passed at least one and often several laws that have made it easier to identify children who are being abused and to punish their abusers. Millions of cases of child abuse have come to light as a result. And yet some states are now considering taking these laws off the books. The argument is that they've been a mixed blessing. Our agenda correspondent is Tim O'Brien.
Protective Services, Center Park.
In Clayton County, Georgia, this child abuse hotline logs nearly 500 calls a month.
The stepfather had wrapped the phone cord around the 15-year-old's throat and was choking him.
Many of the calls, which are confidential, come from professionals, doctors, teachers, psychologists. All states now require that these professionals report any suspicions of child abuse without fear of civil or criminal liability. The aim, to ensure reporting of what used to be a hidden crime.
They were successful beyond anyone's wildest dreams, from 160,000 in the 60s to 2.5 million children last year.
As the number of reports soared to an all-time high, child abuse deaths dropped almost 80%, from 5,000 a year to around 1,200 now. But this mandated reporting system has also produced problems. State agencies have been inundated with the growing volume of reports. Critics, including those who've been accused, complain the investigations have become shoddy and incomplete.
It's like the tuna fisherman throwing out his net. He catches tuna fish, but he also catches and kills a lot of innocent animals. And that's how the system's operating today.
I got caught in that far-flung net, cost me about $40,000 based upon a false accusation of child abuse.
After John Van Sciver took away his daughter's allowance for smoking, she accused him of sexual abuse, recanting the charge 10 months later.
If it had been properly investigated up front, we would have saved not only my family from destruction, but also saved the Department of Social Services probably a like amount of money.
Child abuse experts admit that nearly 7 out of 10 reports of abuse can never be substantiated, but the law requires that even slight suspicions be reported. No room for discretion.
If you fail to report, you can be civilly and criminally liable. And there have been doozies of civil actions, million-dollar verdicts, and so forth.
Ironically, those who do report as the law requires can also become targets. Though they are protected from being sued for good faith mistakes, they can be harassed in other ways by those they have accused of abuse.
Everything I worked for is gone. My clinical and academic reputation is ruined.
5 years ago, psychologist James Singer reported that a teenager who was threatening suicide had been abused. The child's parents countered by going to the state licensing board seeking to have Singer's license revoked. Patients stopped coming. Singer began losing money.
I've lost about $117,000 since I reported abuse. We're vulnerable. We're sitting ducks.
When one professional gets into trouble for reporting a case of known or suspected child abuse, it creates a chilling effect among all professionals.
So chilling that some professionals are now refusing to report their suspicions. Part of the problem, they say, is the lack of uniform guidelines for what ought to be reported, that what is discipline to one may be abuse to another.
Without those guidelines, in my opinion, we guarantee that people who are called upon to make reports will make mistakes.
Besheroff and others argue that professionals ought to be allowed to use their discretion rather than be required to report mere hints of abuse. But the idea is meeting stiff resistance.
I don't know of any children who have been seriously hurt or killed by having been reported. But I do know of children who have been seriously hurt and killed by not having been reported.
And there is wide agreement that those who receive reports need better training to help screen out the unfounded cases. But with the incidence of child abuse on the rise, advocates insist that any remedy that discourages reporting would be disastrous for children. Tim O'Brien, ABC News, Baltimore.
The American Agenda. More news in a moment.